My new course is available now. It's called Instructions to Inner Peace, Finding Equanimity and Healing Through an Organized Practice of Ho'oponopono. Now, this course is for anyone with anxiety, depression, PTSD, anger, self-worth issues, or for any spiritual seeker who wishes to raise their consciousness. Ho'oponopono, or as many people who have taken the course call it, HPO, means to correct errors. It's the ancient Hawaiian technique of cleaning unwanted thought patterns, taking responsibility for your emotions, and raising your frequency for love. I've organized it into a daily practice for you. Check out the link below or go to www.peaceoverpain.com, enter the cyber clinic, and purchase this audio course for a very affordable cost. Give it a shot, see if it's for you, and please let me know how it turns out.
Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
So how do you bliss out? Through meditation. Welcome to episode number 132. Today, I'm sitting down with Franscesco Gatti. He's a health researcher, meditation veteran, and co-founder of BlissOut.co. Before we jump into this conversation, please sit down and relax and take in this beautiful and valuable recording. Let's begin. Francesco, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So how does someone get naturally high?
A number of body-mind practices that I have the fortune in my life to have come across, and now they're also backed by research and science that show that you can get naturally high without the need of, for example, substances or medication or drugs. That is where normally people in our society tend to go when they want to switch off and have a space that goes beyond the routine of their chaotic minds with repetitive thoughts. So they normally naturally gravitate towards external substances, but those substances, they activate things that we already have in our body. And there are ways where you can leverage your natural ability to produce those chemicals and feel naturally high. So I kind of started to research more and more what are the practices that can give you those feeling of being naturally high.
You know, meditation is a big part of this, right? And to get to that blissed out state.
Absolutely. I think meditation has become a secular practice that has been acknowledged by science, by medical professionals. That is one of the best tools we have to improve our mental health. And the thing that we I want to show through the book that I've written, Bliss Out, is that meditation is normally associated with passive techniques. And my experience is that if you start with the passive techniques, in order to get to the state of bliss, it's a little bit of a long journey. And many people get lost after very briefly, and they get through some obstacles, the initial obstacles that we all experience when we start meditating, and they don't carry on, and then they miss out on a big opportunity that we have with meditation. So there are ways where it's easier to remove the obstacles for you to get to that state that meditation has to offer. So of course, meditation is very helpful for relaxation, for stress relief, for improving your sleep, for improving your mental cognition, and a number of other benefits that are proven. But there is something even bigger and beyond that, which is an experience of inner bliss that is possible to achieve.
What would you say are some of the obstacles for meditation?
So I think most of the techniques that are available for meditations have been devised thousands of years ago, but the way we live today is very different. So in my experience, meditation needs an urgent upgrade, if you like, in order to be able to match up the different lifestyle that we live today. So today we have new obstacles to meditation that perhaps our ancestors didn't have, simply because the way we live today is completely different. Today we live in big cities. We have 8 billion people on planet Earth. We have an information overload. We are overstimulated. We have a predominantly sedentary lifestyle. It's the most sedentary species we have ever been before, simply because we don't need to move as much as we used to thousands of years ago, for thousands of years. So this has to be taken into account if we want to really find a way to speed up the process of our meditation practice and our, improving our mental health. So in my experience, and what is the data showing as well, some of the obstacles to meditations are that our minds are very chaotic, because we have overstimulated. We are overstimulated, and stress is at all high times in our modern world. I think we've never been as stressed as we are today. And the reason why is because our lifestyle has become really fast-paced, high pressure, and we receive a lot of stimulation at all times. We have these beautiful devices that are mobile phone, and I use it all the time, but at the same time, it carries a lot of side effects, in addition to all the pressure at work that we have. And then in combination with that, we sit most of the time, it's predominantly in front of screens, either a computer or again, the mobile phone, because we have to work. And instead of working, some people still have their professions where they go outdoor and do physical activities, but the world population is moving more and more towards working via computers. And this means sitting in front of a computer most of the time and using our minds to process information. And the combination of these two things is quite unnatural. Our body is not being designed to sit all day and just use our mind for processing information. So I think this is bringing a lot of issues that if they are not addressed, you imagine spending 8-10 hours, even 6-7 hours at work in front of a computer, and then going home and sitting down trying to meditate. I've done that, and it was counterproductive. I didn't go very far with that, because again, after focusing, using my mind and sitting still, again, I had to spend an hour sitting still, watching my breath or chanting a mantra. And I find that either I would fall asleep or I would get very frustrated, very bored. It just didn't work. My body wasn't happy to sit again, and my mind was resisting my attempt to, have clear my mind. All of a sudden, just close your eyes and relax. It's actually, I was getting even more anxious and more restless. Yeah. And I think it's not just, I realized through the time that it's not just my personal issue. I thought maybe at the beginning it was just me. I'm not cut out for meditation. I'm not, I don't have the meditator's genes, maybe
the genes.
And maybe I'm not doing it correctly. But if you talk to people, you will find out that many people face the same issues, and it's normal. It's absolutely normal. It's nothing wrong with that, simply because the lifestyle we have, it's not conducive to spend so many hours and then just sitting down and trying to relax directly. I think it's not as effective as it could be.
Yeah. So you have a new book out called Bliss Out. And on your website, blissout.co, you have in text, discover a new disruptive type of meditation. So that's going to catch someone's attention right there. Disruptive type of meditation. Now that's an oxymoron right there. And then you say life is not about sitting still. So why should meditation be? Please explain.
Yeah, so first of all, meditation per se is a state of being. And I think there are different ways to get there. So meditation is meditation, but there are different techniques and different ways to experience that moment of that can be for everyone is different. You know, it's hard to say. I can only speak for myself, and I'm not inside the brain and the mind of someone else, but you know, there is a state that can be achieved and that I've experienced it in my life thanks to the practice of meditation. And life is not about sitting still. So why should meditation be? Is because ultimately life is movement. Everything is in constant movement. You know, our body, as we talk now, our cells are dying, reborn. Everything is changing. We are getting older. The time is passing. You know, everything is the earth is moving. Everything is moving. And this idea that you need to sit down and be still for meditation, I think I want to challenge that. And I think there are different ways. It's definitely one way. It can work for many people, and that's beautiful. But many other people find that very challenging. So you can use body movement to help you achieve that state through a practice of meditation. So this is, I think, very important, because normally, even today, that meditation is becoming mainstream, is becoming a secular practice, it's been accepted. It's a little bit the same that happened before with fitness. You know, in the 60s and 70s, I think people who went to the gym were only bodybuilders and fanatics, and you know, there was no one going jogging. You were considered a little bit crazy. And then, you know, now when I started meditating, also wasn't a thing like it's today. You know, it was a spiritual practice. It was a bit of a woo-woo thing. Yeah. Whereas nowadays, meditation is definitely a proven practice to improve and help people to feel more relaxed, to improve mental health. But when you say meditation, still today, most people associate it with something that is still, something that you have to sit silently, close your eyes, and magically you relax. And I think that doesn't work for many people. It didn't work for me, and I know for sure it doesn't work for many others. So I want to talk to these people who are interested in meditation, but they are not attracted to the fact that they need to sit still. People who want to try something different. They're already meditating, but they may want to try a more effective or different way. You know, I do sport, and I like to try different type of sport. I love eating. I love trying different type of food. But also there are people, the main reason why people who don't meditate and have tried meditation and they stopped is because they found it hard and they found it boring. So I think if you start with body movement, it's a way to make meditation a more enjoyable practice, that it will help you to stick around for a little longer and ultimately experience the real gift that meditation has to offer.
Yeah. And so you, from what I know, you are a big practitioner of dynamic meditation, right? Which is made famous by OSHO, the Bhagwan, back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And could you describe what dynamic meditation looks like?
Yeah, so dynamic meditation is the most powerful meditation I think that has ever been designed. As you mentioned, it's been designed by OSHO, known as Bhagwan. In 1970, he introduced dynamic meditation for the first time. And I'm a big fan of dynamic meditation. I've practiced dynamic meditation now for over 20 years. And at some point, I did it for 4 years, every single day. Wow. It sounds like, it's not a big deal to do a meditation. If you practice meditation, you do it every day. But once you know what dynamic meditation is about, if you think to do it every day for 4 years, it's been quite a commitment, because dynamic meditation is a very intense, very physically demanding practice. And it's a total game changer. And in the book, I go into great details in trying to explain also the science behind dynamic meditation. Because when Osho created dynamic meditation, he experimented on people. So in this sense, he was scientific in the way that he was testing what worked on people, get feedback, adjust, improve. He used his genius to come up with a technique that was able to help modern people living in at that time, 1970s, that couldn't really benefit from the traditional meditation techniques. However, at that time, there were not the tools that we have available today, and the science wasn't there to actually prove what meditation does. So there are a couple of studies, one specifically published on PubMed, that looked at the effect of dynamic meditation, and it reduces cortisol levels. So it's good for, managing stress, essentially. But for me, dynamic meditation has much more to offer than that. And so I attempted to look at all the paper, all the studies, and link to the different stages of the technique to see what really, to see dynamic meditation in the full spectrum of its beauty. And so, there are 5 stages. It normally lasts for 1 hour. And the first stage is chaotic deep breathing. So now we have a lot of studies done on breath work, right, that before used to be called pranayama, but right, now it's called breath work. So especially thanks to Wim Hof.
I was just going to say, the Iceman does that breathing as well.
Right. So because of him, he really brought a lot of attention to breath work. And there have been a lot of studies conducted in the last, 10, 15 years, and more in the last few years. So I looked at those studies and trying to think, because dynamic meditation has a specific type of breathing, which is a type of hyperventilation. So even though Wim Hof breathing is not exactly the same as dynamic, but there are some similarities. So I was trying to understand how those studies apply to dynamic meditation. And it's fascinating, hyperventilation is a way to, boost your, for example, one thing that people, I didn't know is that through the Wim Hof breathing, you stimulate your adrenaline, for example. And that's counterintuitive, because you think you want to do breath work to relax, whereas, that's stimulating adrenaline because it's hyperventilation. Anything that is fast breathing is mainly arousing the sympathetic nervous system. Whereas if you want to relax and stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, then you need to do some practices of breath work that emphasizes the exhale, and they slow down your breath timing. So that's one thing. And then the second stage of dynamic meditation is catharsis. And that's really an innovative thing that Osho brought into the world of meditation. Yeah. And so you are allowed to express through the body, through the voice, and throw out all the emotions that come, whatever comes in the surface. So on that, now we also have evidence from a number of psychotherapists and neuroscientists who acknowledged that if you don't express negative emotions in general, but specifically negative emotions, they can lead long-term to health issues, health hazards. That was a great intuition that Osho had back then. So normally the advice you get on how to handle negative emotion and anger, for example, which is a very powerful emotion, is to, just watch, wait, control your emotion or at best, a meditation teacher might tell you to just detach, watch the emotions, and it will go. But with anger, it's not that easy. It's so overpowering. So, it's because there is a whole host of chemical reaction happening in the body. Adrenaline kicks in, and once you are flooded with adrenaline and you try to watch it, unless you're a super advanced meditator, chances are you are losing it and you just go with the chemicals that are possessing you. So I think a more smart approach that can be very helpful is to actually, okay, adrenaline is in the body now, so I actually naturally follow what the body is telling me to do, rather than try to repress it or stop it or freezing. So when we have negative emotions, the body is producing those chemicals, and those chemicals, if they're not expressed, they end up going somewhere. They're not disappearing. So normally in the past, we used to have those emotions for short term, and the body would use that energy that is produced by those emotions. So you kind of release that very powerful charge. Whereas nowadays, because we live sedentary lifestyle, because we are not encouraged to express our emotions, if we get angry and we are in an office, if we are stuck in traffic, that anger has no chance to be expressed, and ultimately, slowly starts to have a negative effect on our health. So the fact that we can express emotions in a context of a meditation where you are safe, you're not hurting anyone, you're not hurting yourself, you're not picking a fight with someone, I think is brilliant. It's very helpful.
And of course, the cathartic stage is the controversial one too, because people are kind of, if the average person came walking down the street and saw you in that stage, they'd be like, oh, this guy's crazy, and they'd run away. Because you're going, you're jumping, you're just screaming, you're doing all this stuff.
Explain and educate people, and just look at the data and look at the effect and look at what the stress response does and how the body reacts to emotions chemically, the hormonal changes that happen in the body and how to handle that, and if you come up to me with a better solution, I will follow you. But I think for me now, in my understanding, in my research, I feel like, and it's also what some experts now advise, if you look at many experts, they say, repressing emotions is not the best strategy, but they still don't go as far as advising a full catharsis, even though they say, you better shake, you better let it out, you better cry. I've heard, Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist, Marisa Peers is a famous psychotherapist. So there are people also who are, frontline, started to openly acknowledging the benefits of expressing emotions. But we are not there yet. So for example, an idea could be that people start to acknowledge the importance of expressing emotions, and say you are in an office, maybe you can have a dedicated room where if you feel angry, you can go in that room and just let it out. So instead of picking a fight and start having conflicts with your colleagues, if you feel that emotion is overpowering you, let it out, chill, and then you come back. I think we would be in a better place. I think it would be a great experiment that we could try on a larger scale, definitely much more than what we see today. Today, we see people getting angry, keeping it in, and then, ending up freezing their body or developing diseases, or just lashing it out at others, going crazy, because people still do go crazy. You just mentioned before, if you are on the street and you see someone going crazy, if they are on their own doing a catharsis, they think, oh, that guy is crazy. But if they're fighting with someone else, oh, they're just angry and stressed.
Right.
So I think we need to change perception, and we need to start understanding how the body reacts and how our lifestyle is so overwhelming that we need to let it out. We do need, it's a natural.
Back in the 70s, video would come out from OSHO's commune of people doing catharsis, and all sorts of rumors were spread about it, right? Like, because on video you're seeing people doing wild things, right? But they're really just acting out their aggression. But of course the media or whoever can take the video and they can spin the narrative into, you know, brainwashing or all sorts of nonsense, you know, narratives, right?
Yeah, there has been a lot on that with the commune, but I think nowadays it's not 2021. We have a lot of data, a lot of science, a lot of very educated people, mental health experts who started to understand the brain in a different way. So again, we need to bring it back to practical terms and a secular practice backed by science. And we need to start thinking that if you have a stress response and your body is flooded with adrenaline, where do you think this adrenaline is going to go? Yeah. Unless you express it or you are so advanced that you can let it out. But the human body is designed to use that energy for a reason. That's why the body is producing adrenaline, because it thinks that you need it for an action. And that if no action follows, something doesn't, you know, the body gets confused and eventually breaks down. So we need to, I think, if we start changing this narrative and we educate people, I hope that it can improve our mental health.
Yeah. So what's the next stage of dynamic?
The next stage is jumping on the spot, shouting the sound who. And yeah, who. You raise your hands and you jump, you land on your feet, and your intention is to raise your energy and using the sound who. And it's super powerful, super effective. And I mean, there are some physiological benefits just because you're jumping. You know, forget about everything else. Just jumping now is proven to be a form of aerobic exercise. And, you know, we all know how beneficial it is to have at least 20, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise every day. And there you have 10 minutes of continuous jumping. So it's quite intense. And you can get away with your daily fitness routine just by doing that 10 minutes of jumping. You know, it improves bone mass, it improves your VO2 max, and, you know, it's a wonderful way to just on a physiological level. On top of that, because you're shouting the sound who, you also feel physically, you feel it, and you are kind of raising your energy. Now, it's a bit difficult to explain energy because what is energy is still not clear, but people who do dynamic meditation know, because you feel it in your body that something is happening. And we know, because, you know, everyone that does physical activity, that when you run, when you jump, when you dance, you know, there is a release in the body of bliss chemicals. So something chemically is happening, is a change in brain chemistry. You know, you have your serotonin, your dopamine, they're all the endorphin, they're all activated, and that's how, you know, that's why it's so good to do sport. And there you're jumping, you're using the sound, you feel this energy that is growing, and sometimes you really feel it in your brain. You know, that's the idea. When you start hitting your core center of your energy and you push this energy up against the gravity, then when it gets to your head, you have fireworks. You know, it happens to me so many times. It's my favorite stage of the meditation, because that's where I feel like there is something more than the body, because you can jump against gravity. You can jump where you feel like you are defying the law of gravity. It's a beautiful sensation. So the next stage, you go into silence. And that is normally people start with the fourth stage of dynamic meditation. Normally you sit or stand still, or you sit down, you close your eyes and you relax. Whereas we start meditation after half an hour of intense activity, of breath work, emotional expression, of jumping. And only at that point, we can be in silence, because once our minds are more clear, our body is being activated. So we release stress, we increase our chemicals, our bliss chemicals, then your energy is high. And then at that point is the best time to attempt meditation, to sit quietly and or just stand. In dynamic, you actually stand, you freeze completely, and you want to exploit as much as possible this opposite, this dynamic movement from complete movement to total stillness. Osho was very peculiar on that. You at the peak of your energy, of your action, you stop. You stop, and you kind of, as if the pendulum reaches one end and then automatically shift and goes to the other end. And it's like an alchemy. It's a alchemical reaction. And in that stage, you just be with yourself. And you will feel your heart is beating, you're probably sweating, those things are easy to observe. But slowly, you also start watching the reaction, the thoughts in your mind and your emotion, and then something energetically, because all that energy that has been activated now that you're still starts to move inside and settle. So it's a beautiful opportunity to really stay with yourself, to watch yourself. So yeah, that's the silent stage.
And you did it for 20 years.
Yeah, well, I started in, I think, 1998, 1999. I did it for the first time. And then, I still do it at any opportunity. I don't do it every day. I've done it every day for 4 years continuously, like every single day. And that was the time where I really wanted to have a change in my life, and which it happened. It was a complete transformation. And then I felt so good. I almost got addicted to the benefits of dynamic. And so I just carried on.
It kept blissing you out, right?
Exactly.
So how did you maintain to do it every day? Because, I've talked to many people who do dynamic, and it's one of those things where it is loud. So, if you live in a suburban neighborhood, people might call the cops on you. Do you have to go to the neighbors and let them know?
Yes, and that's the reason why I stopped at the 4th year, because I moved to a new place, and the neighbor downstairs at the 3rd day of dynamic came up and say, "Hey, what's going on in the morning?" So I kind of explained myself, but then I decided to, because unfortunately in that flat, the pavement was, you could hear everything basically, like, whereas in the previous apartment, for some reason, the neighbors didn't complain. Of course, there are ways to muffle the sound. There are ways, to go about it, but depends on your neighborhood, depends on the condition of your flat, it depends where you live. But you can still do it. I mean, I did it even, you consider for years. Sometimes I would travel. I was in hotel rooms. I was at friends' places. I was in my parents' house, like everywhere. If you want to do it, you do it. If you have the motivation, if you feel the benefit, you just do it. If you want to, basically the way to go about it is the second stage, you can do it in silence. And there are 2 ways. One, you can take a pillow and shout in the pillow if you want to release through the voice. And that works. Or you just use body movement. So you don't use your voice, and you just express everything through body movement. I personally think, of course, it's best to be free. There is, if you have an opportunity to express everything through the voice, body movement, without any restrictions, without being worried about neighbors, obviously that's the ideal scenario. But there are still benefits of doing dynamic, even if you have complaining neighbors and you just, use a pillow or you use body movement. And the third stage, the WHO normally, it's not a massive issue with neighbors is more the second stage, but the jumping can be a problem if you have people downstairs, and that was my issue. The third stage was the big problem, because the one downstairs, I was like, everything was shaking, because it was a 1930 built, and you could hear like every step, even a cat walking.
And you're not a small dude either. You look like you're over 6 foot.
I am 90 kg.
So so many people swear by dynamic meditation. So many people say it's the greatest meditation ever created, or it's on par with Buddha's Vipassana, which is different, just a different style, but both work for a lot of people, right? What's the transformation that you went through in those 4 years?
So, a total transformation. I think dynamic works on changing your chemistry as well. So for me, I used to be very angry. So anger was a big thing in my life, a big theme. And, you wouldn't say perhaps because, I may look like, a nice, kind guy, but I was actually super angry for a number of reasons. So to have the opportunity to release anger from the past, not just the daily accumulated anger that we all experience, if we live, especially in big cities, there is always an opportunity to get angry. The guy that pushes you on the public transport, the guy that cuts you on when you are in traffic, the normal pressure at work. Anger is a normal emotion that we all feel, and we shouldn't feel bad about it. It just, it's there. There is love, there is anger, it's sadness. It's one of the emotions that we have in our rainbow, in our experience. But because anger is a little bit troublesome, because it creates conflicts with people and it's not encouraged in society, so we tend to feel bad about it, because also we don't know what to do with anger.
Right.
And if you start expressing it and get into a conflict, normally you are blamed, you feel guilty, you shouldn't have said that, you shouldn't have done that. And then, the day after, again, off you go. And it's so difficult to control. And the best advice you get, just control, keep your cool. It's not working very well. So for me, to have the opportunity to express anger has been a big part of it. But there are so many other benefits I got. For example, I used to have asthma. I had breathing constrictions. I didn't breathe very well. And through the breath work of the first stage, I cured myself. So now I don't take I used to take medication. Now I'm completely off, many years now. And it's just gone. I don't know exactly when and how, but just by doing meditation during those 4 years, at some point, I didn't have any problem breathing, and now I'm absolutely fine, medication free.
Nice.
Then the experiences I had in terms of raising my energy level, I also used to have, anxiety, depression, and a feeling of not being fully awake, fully alive, and fully energetic. And the third stage, with this raising your energy and keeping it up, has been a great opportunity for me to understand how I can be. It kind of raised the bar for how I can live. I can live at a much higher level of energy compared to what I used to experience before. I used to, some people just think that being, low on energy is normal because that's all they know. But for me, there was a much higher level that I could aspire to.
Right.
And then, also to now be able to sit down and do a more kind of passive traditional meditation technique and enjoy it has been probably the biggest gift, because after a lot of dynamic meditation, now for me, it's so much easier to relax and meditate. Before was basically impossible for me. Because I had so much accumulated stress, so much accumulated anger, and my energy level was low. So just to start, that's how I started. When I came to know first about meditation was what at the time was called Vipassana, and now it's more known as mindfulness, where you sit down, you watch your breath. And for me, it was a torture. I just didn't get it. And I just gave up because I thought, this thing is driving me even more crazy.
Right.
And then now that, sometimes just spontaneously, naturally, or sometimes even in the morning, I enjoy a passive technique, and I just love it, just spend time in nature, close my eyes, sit by a tree, or just even with open eyes, looking at the sky without focusing on anything in particular, and just enjoying the present moment and breathing in, breathing out. It's a miracle. And I owe it to many years of dynamic meditation. No doubt about that.
In the book Bliss Out, are there other techniques also described besides dynamic?
Yes, absolutely. So dynamic for me was the kind of door, the key through which I could then access different states of being, experience bliss, enhance my energy level. But then I went down the rabbit hole. Are there any other practices that are science-based and they can kind of fit into this framework of thinking of meditation by releasing stress, moving the body, activating these bliss chemicals, and then sit and relax? Is there a way I can create like a formula, if you like, to hacking bliss, to hacking this highest state of being that can be done through dynamic meditation? But are there other techniques, other ways? And yes, there are. And there are sometimes things that are very easy to practice, very enjoyable, and very effective. For example, just dancing. Dancing is something that is so normally people associate dancing with clubbing, with consuming alcohol and partying. But thankfully, even just in the last 10 years, there have been this rise of daybreakers, morning glory reveal, this sober rave party, ecstatic dance, 5 movements, that people started to really understand the power and magic of dancing. And it's wonderful because it is true. I mean, through dancing, you can, again, it's proven that dancing is probably the one that is the best at activating all the bliss chemicals, and you enjoy the body movement, and people can get free of inhibition. There's no need to take any substance to really feel high through a beautiful dance, especially in a group environment. So in our live events, definitely we use dance. And OSHO also, of course, he was pioneering in this as well. Dance was very much it's part of dynamic meditation, and it's part of a lot of the other techniques that he devised. Yeah. So dancing is definitely key, but there are other things like shaking to release tensions from the body. Is a very easy
animals do that too.
Exactly. Now there is a whole new science, tension release exercises, and it's a natural response of the body to shake, and then that's how you release that, again, the stress. And then you can move on and come back to the baseline. Whereas if we have these emotions and we are freeze and we don't release that, then it creates issues in the way. So there are different ways, and shaking is definitely one of it. So especially for people who feel a little bit numb, a little bit that are not in touch with their emotions, or their body stiff. Some people, you can tell they're like very stiff in the body. I think shaking is a beautiful way to start releasing and melting those blocks. Because now we know, it's proven by science, that unexpressed emotions are stored as toxins in the tissues, in the body. And they don't only create in the long-term health issues, but they also create a very stiff body.
So in the book, we're going to get a bunch of meditations that improve our life. And it's more than just sitting down and being still. They're active. They're movement based.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're based on this idea that before attempting sitting down, it's best to start with practices to release stress from the body and mind through dancing, through shaking, through even gibberish or making sounds or using talking a language that you don't know. That's another wonderful technique that anyone can practice. It's very easy. Of course, if you've never done it before, you may think it's a little awkward, but just by talking a language that you don't know or making meaningless sounds, it's so liberating because our language is linked to our rational part of the mind. So every time we talk, we kind of have to focus, we have to engage our rationality. So by kind of deconstructing this process and just using the voice for the pleasure of it and letting it go, we are kind of disengaging the rational part and engaging other parts of the brain, and it's very relaxing, it's very pleasurable, it releases energy. So that's another beautiful way to release stress, especially that's more in the mind, but you can do gibberish, you can talk a language that you don't know as you move your body, as you shake, as you, sometimes you can, breathe, do a little bit of hyper breathing, or you can just laugh. Laughter is the ancient technique probably that we as humans we have created.
Yeah.
And now again it's proven by science. There is a lot of attention on the health benefits of laughter.
Oh yeah. If you want to change your mindset, find something funny.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a very good laugh.
So
Yes.
I have to ask you this. I read that you spent a year in a Himalayan forest on a retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Please do explain.
So yes, that was a difficult time in my life. I was a little bit confused about what to do with myself. And I really wanted to have a change and go deeper into meditation. Because when I got into meditation at the beginning of my journey, it was really about trying to find eternal peace. It was more about, chasing this dream of enlightenment. That's what really got me excited. And of course, through the many years, I realized it's not that easy, and perhaps it's not, I don't even know if it's possible. I don't know what enlightenment is. I think meditation is a wonderful practice to be happier and healthier. And perhaps it may lead to enlightenment, but I don't know. I can't speak about that. But at that time, I really wanted to have an experience that was deeper than whatever I could do on my own, practicing at home and, for 1 hour or 2 or 3 sometimes, but still having the daily commitments, living in a city. It's hard to go deeper. So I decided to go into a retreat. And my flight ticket was for 2 weeks initially. It was a 2-week trip, but that turned into a full year. So that's what happened. And it completely changed my life. I did have an opportunity to go much, much deeper than any time before. There were times where I would meditate for 10 hours per day. And even when you don't meditate, you are in a forest, you are surrounded in an environment, there was hardly any Wi-Fi, electricity would go off for more than 10 hours per day. So, there were very little distractions. There were a few books available, but there were books on spirituality. So it was all very much the whole context, the whole environment was kind of very little distractions from yourself. And it was tough at the beginning. I have to say it was tough. But
it almost sounds like a Zen monastery or something.
Kind of.
Yeah. So what's it like meditating for 10 hours a day? I mean, it's not consistent. It's in little bits and pieces, obviously. You got to go to the bathroom and eat and stuff, but that's a lot of meditation.
It's a lot of meditation, yes. I mean, it's basically, you have techniques. Normally there are structured practices that you start in the morning with some pranayama, with yoga, then you do dynamic meditation, then you have breakfast. But as you are having breakfast, you are in silence and you eat mindfully. So it's not a formal practice, but you are in meditation as you eat, because you're not talking, you're not distracting yourself. You're kind of, just very slow. You walk slow. As you go to the loo to do your pee, you walk slow and you try to practice awareness of your breath. And I say try because, it's not easy, at least for me, it's not easy. But once you are in a forest and you do a lot of formal practices, including dynamic meditation, it sets you up for it really, there is a chemical change in your brain, and there is an energetic support of the environment and the people around. You're not looking at your phone, you're not engaging in conversations about, any whatever, you're not worried about work, you're not worried about emails. So everything is conducive to you to go inside. And then you have the support of specific techniques that you practice. So it's not just, you sit down for 10 hours and you are in silence. So at least that the type of place it was an OSHO place. So we were doing a lot of OSHO meditations. And there are a number of different techniques. There was a lot of dancing as well. So you may not talk, but you can express through dance, through body movement. So it was much easier. So it wasn't the traditional Buddhist monastery where you sit down in silence for 10 hours, which I personally think is not for everyone. It's definitely not for me.
Right on. So you mentioned enlightenment and how that was kind of your motivation in the beginning, right? Because we all kind of chase it, same here. But I've learned a lot from my current mentor, Vishrant, who says that enlightenment might be a karma thing. And the best that you can do is just get into a place of higher consciousness where you're just, that mindfulness where you're watching your thoughts, you're watching your emotions, you're just in a state of equanimity. And that supports the enlightenment. And whether it happens or not, it's not up to you. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. It's, I think, makes a lot of sense. For me personally, when I started, I was very young. I think I was 18, 19 when I first came across a book about meditation. And then soon after I discovered OSHO, and OSHO, of course, it talks a lot about enlightenment. And he got me inspired, really had fire in my belly, and I wanted that. And now I think I'm in a different space where I just want to be normally happy, considering that there are emotions, there are negative emotions, there are moments, there are ups and downs. There is definitely bliss as part of the experience of life. And I'm super grateful that I had the opportunity to touch that space. But I don't know if I could be in that space 24 hours. I don't know if that it's even the point. I don't know if that what enlightenment is. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more down to earth to what is the reality of my life. And yeah, just enjoying the small things. And I don't think about enlightenment anymore. But as you say, by practicing meditation regularly, perhaps there might be a state that one day I will achieve that. But it's not I don't wake up in the morning thinking of enlightenment as I used to do before and doing 10 hours meditation. I feel like now I just I wake up, I take a cold shower, I meditate, I enjoy my coffee, I do some work, and that's just beautiful. I pet my cat, I enjoy, I spend time with my beloved, and I'm in nature, and I try to do things that I love doing, and that's it, really.
So before I ask my last question, where can someone go get this book, Bliss Out, and where can they find you?
Yeah, so we have our website, www.blissout.co, and pretty much everything is there. We've got a book, we've got a online workshop for people who want to know a little bit more and spend an hour of their time with us. And also we have an online course, which goes a little bit deeper in everything that we discussed today and we discussed in the book. We offer 3 meditation practices that people can do with us from the comfort of the home, and we go into much more details on the science, and we explain why doing this meditation is beneficial for people, and we guide people step by step on what they need to do if they want to achieve those results. And yeah, all the informations are on the website, and yeah, we're always happy to engage with people. And we also offer live retreats, but of course at the moment, due to COVID, it's all a little bit on hold. We are hopefully aiming to offer these live retreats next spring and summer. And finally, we also offer an opportunity to work with us on a one-to-one basis for people who really want to go very deep and have individual support, because sometimes some people, they meditate, they are at home, or they even go to some groups, but I personally had mentors in meditations, but also in other aspects of my life. And I found that if you're serious about something, to have a mentor is the best opportunity to really grow and go deeper and learn.
It is. So last question. How can meditation prepare us to die?
I think death is, together with sex, the 2 most
taboo subjects, right?
Taboo subject, but
Yeah.
they're the 2 keys, the 2 most important things, the beginning and end of life. And I think with sex, we kind of now talk about it. It's less of a taboo, but death is still a big taboo. I personally also, even though I've been meditating for so long, but I know, I'm aware that I try not to think too much of death. But I must say that there have been times in meditation where I touched the real fear of death. Because when I go deep in meditation, there is nothing there, and it's kind of dying, and that scares me. So I think how meditation can prepare for death, I don't have an answer to that, but definitely I think that death is something that we all naturally try to avoid thinking about, but we are all gonna die.
Apparently so.
Apparently so. Even though now the science is there is a whole science of longevity, or how to extend lives through lifestyle interventions, but also through medical interventions. And apparently some people are claiming that they can live up to 180 years. And, if we stick around for 50 years or so, we are probably likely able to live much longer due to innovation. And even some people are saying that death is a disease and we may one day never die. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not sure that a life without death would make any sense at all.
No.
I think there is the fact that we die is what makes life exciting and what makes life meaningful, because it's here and now it's not. So yeah, I think Yeah, that's my answer. I don't know if that
It works. It works. Francesco,
Cool.
man, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.